We have recently been given access to Google Gemini in our education accounts. And there are a few things that have happened that have allowed that to be possible. So if you look on slide 2, it does outline what Gemini has provided our education accounts. So we now have data privacy protections specifically with Gemini. And that's really important because, as we have talked in several of our AI trainings, open AI or some of the generative AI tools that we have access to and that we like to use do not have data privacy protections in place. So any information that we feed into those AI models can be used by those particular platforms or companies to feed their algorithm, to update their algorithm, and then of course the information that we feed into it, they keep. So we blocked ChatGPT because we want to make sure that we're not putting information into that could potentially contain anything private, anything student information related, and things like that. So that's why we don't see a lot of those open AI model options available on our school network. Google Gemini has been around for quite a while. They've been trying to build themselves and become comparable to those same AI models, but just recently they have made it so that the Gemini tools that are available in education accounts have data privacy in place. So that is why we can now use it. Another important thing to know is that the education accounts are receiving the most recent Gemini model. So every time Gemini gets updated, or they update the algorithm, or they make any changes to any of the tools, they are giving us the most recent model, which is pretty awesome. The tools that we have available in our EDU accounts do include some upgraded features, but you'll see and hear from Kayla and I, there are things that we can't do that if you were on like a personal Google account and you paid for the actual Gemini upgrade, it has a lot of features that can do some really cool things. And really, we can do a lot of really cool things with the EDU account version, but there are just some things that are not available because they do want some people to have to pay for it. So the important thing to know when you are using Gemini, if you open up like the Gemini chat, or if you are on an app, they have a Gemini app that you can put on your phone. The thing that you want to make sure of when you're using it is that you are signed in with your school account. Just like any other Google tool, if you open up the chat and you look at the little Google icon at the top, you'll be able to tell which account is open based on whatever picture or profile image you have set on that account. And you just want to make sure that the one that you have signed in and that you're using is your school account, because all of those things that I just talked about are tied to your school or your EDU account. All right. So we're going to jump in, and Kayla is going to show you guys some of the Gemini features that are available in Google Classroom.
Okay, if you want to follow along and play with it a little bit as we're going through this training, definitely feel free. You should have all the accessibility that we do so that you can play with it. So if you want to just open a Google Classroom, if you have one created, I'm going to get to one. And I just created a generic Google Classroom the other day just to play with it a little bit. So when I open that up, you'll see over on the left-hand side here where you have home, calendar, resources, you have this Gemini icon. You can also, if you go into your waffle, you can find the apps. So here's the Gemini app. And then one that we're going to be talking about a little bit later is Notebook LM. So both of those apps are in the Google Suite if you wanted to be able to locate them there. But over here on the left, you have this Gemini tool. And when you open it up, if you have used Magic School AI, it has very similar capabilities. There's a lot of similar tools. If you have it on all, it will obviously list all the tools that are available. If you click this show more, there's more there as well. If you see a tool with this Gemini logo, that will automatically take you into the Gemini chat, which we'll show you here in just a little bit. But as you can see, you can outline lesson plans, generate quizzes. Like I said, very similar features to what you have in Magic School AI. If you know you are specifically just wanting to create an assessment, you could just click on assessment, and these are the tools that are going to be most likely to help you with that. So that's how you access that information. If I wanted to hit generate a quiz, target grade, however many questions, you can put the skill or standard. So I'll just put third grade. We'll do 10 questions. We'll do multiple choice, and you can be as detailed as you would like. Suggested learning objectives show up if you want it to be multiple choice. So as you can see, pretty quick to give you a little quiz there that then you could use. If you needed to modify it, you can certainly do that. And so what I'm talking about when you go to actually, let's scroll down here just really quickly first. So these are some of the other Google AI tools. These are also located on slide 6 of the presentation. It just gives you a little bit more information about it. But Gemini right here is Google's chatbot, and that's when you think about ChatGPT, or in Magic School AI, it's Raina. It's just their chatbot where you can prompt it to get additional information. They're pretty thorough with their responses. We'll show you a little bit of that. So you'll have to be pretty specific with what you are telling it. The personalized gems over here, this is a really cool feature. They are more expert chatbots. You can create your own gem to just get a task accomplished. Like if it's one that you're going to use frequently within your classroom, creating your own gem is a pretty helpful tool. It's got a lot of really cool options. There are some that are already created that you can use, but you can certainly create your own as well. And then Notebook LM, we'll talk about in a little bit. It's just a little binder that you can put together where you can house a bunch of sources, and then the notebook takes those sources and will create a summary of them for you to where you can ask additional questions, prompt it. It can also create quizzes, flashcards, podcasts, videos based on all the information that you put within that notebook, which is really awesome. We're going to walk you through some of those options as well. So that's a little bit about the tools that you have access to. So when you go to the chat over here where it says brainstorm and create with the Gemini app, and if you just click start a chat, it will open up. Okay. And so then just like you would, you can start typing a prompt in here. Over here on the left, this is where you can find those gems that we talked about. These are recent searches and recent chats that I have created. And one thing to note, those do not go away. So just be mindful of that. Down here, you can add files. You can add them from Drive. There's additional tools, like if you want more guided learning, you can add that as an option to get the information that you need. But it's pretty self-explanatory. So like I might type in here, I am a 7th grade English teacher. I need some lesson ideas for teaching expository writing. So I didn't really give it a lot to go from. And once it creates a response, it will most likely ask me for some clarification on what I'm looking for. This one might not. Okay, so this particular one didn't, but you get the idea. It will give you all the information that you're asking for. And then if you're like, oh, I didn't quite get enough, you can ask it to expand on that, just like you would in your other chats, like when you're working in other AI platforms. So that's a little bit about how that works.
Okay. The gems, as Kayla said, are basically specialized chatbots that you make within Gemini. So I can customize those to really be whatever I want them to be. In this case, I've created a few samples that you guys can look at the prompts for, but some examples of what you might ask it to do are just repetitive tasks that you find yourself doing on a regular basis. Creating lesson plans. Maybe you're going to magic school on a regular basis and asking it to help you create a plan for a specific type of lesson. Maybe you have to write emails often. That's one of the ones that I created for myself. I have to create emails in response to things often, and it's helpful once in a while to get just some assistance in creating those responses. I've seen a couple of people online talking about how they created chatbots or gems for their specific tasks. Like one of them is a sales analysis representative, and he puts his weekly spreadsheet into the gem that he's created by uploading the Google Sheet, which Kayla showed you can do, and then just asking it to give like an overview and breakdown of who are the top salespeople, what do the sales figures look like for the week, what are some maybe outliers of information that they need to note, things like that. And he's built this gem that he can go into each week, give it the spreadsheet, and then it repeats that same task each week for him. Another example was a computer science teacher who built a lesson planner for his students at their grade level for his curriculum, aligned to specific standards, and then asked that it used those standards to create objectives and plans for his classes based on whatever topic they were covering at a given time. So there's lots of different ways you can use this. You can make a chatbot that is vague enough that you can feed it whatever context you need, and then still be able to get information out of it. So I'm just going to show you guys a couple of examples of some chatbots that we created and built while we were playing with all of this. So if you are looking at the presentation on slide 8, there is a link right here that you can click on, and it will take you to this document that I'm going to be looking at. But we have just created and then pulled them into this doc, some gem samples. We've got gem sample 1, which is prompt like a pro. And something to note that when you are prompting AI, there's really a great structure that you can use that helps you remember the things that you should include that will make it a better prompt than just throwing out like, I need you to do this for me. That structure is what I have down in the sample 5. And that is telling the AI, what is your persona? So you're telling the AI, you are this. So in this case, it was, you are a instructional technology coach for a school district of around this many people. You're an expert in educational technology, specifically tools that the district has licensed. And when a teacher has a question about something, it is your job to help them with those issues. So then the task, what do you want the chatbot to be able to do? You will be provided with emails from teachers where an inquiry is being made. Each time, respond to the inquiry by providing a draft email, and then you just give it details of what you want, the format that you want out of that. And I did that here as well as down here. So I said, provide accurate and concise answers. But then down here, I also said, respond in a friendly and professional tone, use clear and concise language, use brevity, format the response as an email, including these things. And then I can be as detailed with context or as vague as I need to be. For example, in mine, I just said, each time an email is provided, if additional context is needed, it will be provided to assist with the output. So basically, I'm telling the chatbot, if I feel like you need more information to give me a better output, I will let you know. Whereas in some of these examples up here, you're providing as much context as you can in the initial building of the chatbot so that the output that you're going to give will be even more specific and relevant to whatever you're wanting the chatbot to do. So you can see in this sample number 2, I made a gem that is impersonating a young Civil War soldier that my 9th grade American history students can chat with to learn about life as a soldier during the Civil War. And actually what I did was I typed this first, and then I asked Gemini to help me write a prompt for a gem that would take into consideration all of the context that the gem would need to have to be a good learning tool for my students. So I'm going to actually show you guys what my chat was for that so you can see what I did. So when I go to Gemini, I have a few chats over here that I have created over the days that we've been working on this. So right over here, you can see the chats that I've built. And then right up here, you can see where gems are. I can click this button to explore gems. And if I've made any, they live right down here under my gems. And any of those that I want to be available over here in my menu, I can click right here and pin it. So it will stay right there in my menu. Okay, so I can pin or unpin as many of these as I want. If I want them all to be showing in my menu all the time, I can just pin all of them that I have. It just depends on how often you're going to be using whatever it is. But in this case, I've built a couple, and the one that I was just talking about, Union Civil War soldier, when I built this, I actually came down here and I created a chat called Gem Prompt Writer because I've used this a couple of times to help me write a prompt for my gems. So this is what I originally put into the chat with Gemini. Make this a more detailed prompt for me to create an AI chatbot for my students. And then my original prompt was impersonate a young Yankee Civil War soldier who my 9th grade American history students can chat with to learn about life as a soldier during the Civil War. So you can see right down here, Gemini took about 30 seconds and it built this detailed breakdown of all the information that my chatbot would need as input to be able to create it so that my students could chat with it and get information back from this particular gem. So I've got core, persona and background, knowledge base, the tone and the language that it should use. It gave it some relevant vocabulary to bring up. And when we were playing with this the other day, I was talking to it like I was a 9th grade student. Hey, do you like playing video games and things like that? And it was coming back and using terminology. It was using historical context. It was giving references to hardtack and some of the ideas that they have here that you're like, kids probably don't know what these things are, but because it's getting to interact with them and the chatbot is like dropping these little hints about different things that are historically relevant to that time period, and then allowing the student to answer questions and then respond to some of the questions that this character is answering or is asking. It gave a lot of learning material that I think was pretty cool. Just a really awesome chatbot that would give students that are trying to learn about the Civil War a lot of information about what it was like. That's what I did for that one. And then I just copied and pasted this. So I literally came up here, I copied all the way down to the bottom of this. And then I went over here to explore gems. I clicked the new gem button and then I pasted it into the instructions. And so my final result is this Union Civil War soldier chatbot that I have. So anytime I want to see what that looks like or how it would interact, I just click on that and it's going to bring up my gem and I can come over here and chat to it like like pretending again that I'm a student and I want to learn about the Civil War. So I can say, what time period did the Civil War take place? We'll just see what our character tells us. Says, good evening to you. Pull up a log. It's a chilly one tonight. Okay, I'm not going to continue to read like that. I did read in a fun accent to all of them the other day, but you can see by the way it's talking, by some of the knowledge that it's dropping. If I continued to talk to it, you would see some highlighted terminology, things that were originally put in as information we wanted the chatbot to cover with the students gets highlighted or bolded when the response comes through. And so it did a really great job of creating something that becomes a learning tool for students. I did a very similar thing to this chatbot where I built a pre-colonial 1600s New England character or settler. And the reason I might have used something like this was because my students were reading The Crucible and were learning about what life was like for the types of characters that were in The Crucible, but also just people living in pre-colonial 1600s America. So I played a little bit with this one earlier and it did the same thing. It gave a lot of detail about life during that time, about like religious persecution and how harsh life was for people living in that time period and trying to make a new life in a land that didn't have a lot to offer them and things like that. So it was another great chatbot that was made from that. So both of those are samples on this page. Sample 2 is that Civil War Union soldier, and sample 3 is the character chatbot for the New England settler. You can see Gemini did a great job of building an outline of information that should be covered by the chatbot as it is talking to the student. Then Kayla and I did come up today with a lesson planner sample. So we did the persona of a skilled teacher and writer teaching 7th grade students how to write different types of essays. We want to help them break down the necessary parts of those essays that they need for various types of writing, including narrative, expository, and argumentative. Students will need the content chunked into mini lessons so that they can learn smaller parts at a time for better understanding. And so I took that and I put it into Gemini and I said, make this a more detailed prompt for a chatbot that would help me write lesson plans for this purpose. And so it gave me all of this. Again, it gave the identity, the persona. We did end up adding that we wanted Missouri Learning Standards to be part of what it included in its output. So it has this element of Missouri Learning Standards included, which then it outlined which Missouri Learning Standards would fit that content, its function, the lesson components that we want. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm not sharing the right page. And then the final output directive, and it actually wrote this part itself. The gem must start its interaction by asking the user which writing mode they want to focus on. So if the teacher came to it and said, I need you to help me write a lesson, the gem would make sure that it said, okay, what type of writing are we focusing on before it would start generating information for the lesson. It did help build that one as well. Now this one I actually wrote on my own. And like I said, this is just a good kind of outline for you when you are trying to write a prompt for AI to think about all of these different parts that should be in your prompt. What is the persona, or like what character are you taking on? You are this. So you're telling the AI that it is this. In this case, I was describing myself. In cases up here, I was describing what I wanted it to be, even though it's not me. And then the task, what is it that you want the chatbot to be able to do? In this case, I said, you're going to be provided this, and from that information, I need you to create this. Context, like I said, you can be vague on that. On mine, I said, each time the email is provided, if context is needed, I will provide it. And then format, however you want that output to look, tell it if it's a lesson plan, if there's a certain structure of lesson plan that you like, tell it to give it to you that way. If you are trying to get an email format, tell it to give it to you that way. You can really just tell it what you want it to look like. If you want it to be bulleted information rather than something that's written out in paragraph form. You can tell it to do all of those things, and it's going to listen to your instructions as far as your format is concerned. And so when I go back to Gym and I go back to look at my gyms, I'll show you the one that we did with the email responder earlier today. And these are all emails that came to me like days and or weeks ago. So I just wanted to see what response it gave. But this one, someone wanted me to help show how to get calendar invite responses to go to a different folder instead of their inbox. And so you can see it wrote out in email format. I'd be happy to show you how to do this. This is the explanation in an email. And what I didn't tell it, I am not very good at remembering to share the right page. What I didn't tell it is that the email provider that we use is Gmail. So you can see this showed how to do the filtering in email in two different formats, for Outlook and for Gmail, because those are the most commonly used. Had I said use only steps for Gmail when I fed it the original prompt, then it would have only given me this Gmail section down here. But it did exactly what it needed to. It set it up in the correct format, and it gave the instructions correctly. Another example is down here. Someone was having an issue with some assignments not showing up in Google Classroom. So I pasted that in, and it said, "Thank you for reaching out. I can help you troubleshoot your Google Classroom issue. The behavior describing seeing the assignment on the stream but not in upcoming or in grades almost always means the assignment hasn't been given a due date." And so to fix this, it gave instructions for how to do that. So my gym that I created for responding to email is doing what essentially I would be doing if I was writing out an email, telling the steps of how to fix something. And it's probably taking from all of the information that's been fed into Google and Google Gemini to get those steps, or looking at when people have posted problems in the Google forums and said, "This is an issue I'm having," and it's giving steps to fix those things. So gems, I think, are probably going to be one of my new favorite things, because I have worked with it enough now in the last few days to learn, like, we can build a specialized purpose into these chatbots and really make it do what we want it to do. And I think it'll be really great for teachers once you have had a chance to play with it and get it perfected the way you want those gyms to look. You'll have a little personal assistant by your side. So you'll always have access to those sample gyms and those sample prompts right here on that document. We'll leave that there and add to it as we create more of those. Of course, if you guys create some and you get something working really well for you, we would love to see the prompt and have those for our own little library that we're building, just so that if it's something really helpful for teachers in the classroom, I'm sure other people would love to hear about it as well. So that is GEMS.
All right, we are going to move into the Notebook LM side of things. So that's starting on slide 9. And to get there, if you go back into your classroom, that Gemini, hold on, having issues as like Nikki, not sharing the right thing. So over here in classroom, where you have that Gemini, okay, you find Notebook LM over here where you can click Create Notebook, or again, if you go up to your Google Suite and scroll down, I haven't reorganized mine, but it's right here. It says Notebook LM. So if you click on it, you just click Create a Notebook. And I learned about Notebook LM probably not quite a year ago, and I was really super excited. And so the fact that we have access to it now, I think will really be a benefit to a lot of people. So when you get there, this is what the dashboard looks like. There's not a lot to it. This is where you can create a new notebook. And with our version, you should be able to create up to 100 notebooks, and each notebook can have up to 50 sources. So it should have way more availability than what you will probably need. Over here, you have some ways of viewing the notebooks if you prefer, like it is right now, more of a grid version, or if you want to make a list, you can certainly do that. As you add more, you can organize them by title or most recent. You've got some settings up here to get some help, send feedback, and so on. If you want it in light mode or dark mode, you'll have that option. I'm so sorry. Let me backtrack a minute. So that's where the grid view and the list view are. This is where the most recent, you can organize it by the ones you've made most recently or by the title or create new. And then the settings is what I was talking about with if you want to put it into light mode or dark mode. And then there's help and feedback and things of that nature. So I apologize for that. But you'll just hit that create new notebook, the little plus button. This is the one I just made. When you open it up, it will prompt you to add sources right away because otherwise it's not really beneficial to you. You need to have sources in it to be able to do anything. So you can add sources directly from your Google Drive. If you have PDFs or files or whatever you need, you can upload them from there. You can just click on whatever it is. You can also, it did open up for me even though I didn't add anything, but you can just continue to add your sources. It'll open back up to that screen. You can add websites, you can add YouTube videos. If you have some text, like maybe you are in a class and you took some notes and you want to include that in there, you can add just about whatever you want. You can see down here how many sources that you have. So I currently have 0 in this because I haven't added anything yet. But it's very simple to add whatever sources you want into your notebook. I'm going to go ahead and show you one that I've already created because I was just playing with it. I'm just going to go back to the main dashboard. So I created this dinosaurs one a while back just because I was curious about how it worked. I went in and I added some random websites. I added a YouTube video, just a few sources here. So I could obviously add a lot more because I can have up to 50. As you add sources in this side of the screen, it will summarize that information over here in this chat space, which is pretty cool. Now, as you add sources, you'll probably want to refresh that screen so that it takes those sources into account. But as you're adding things, you can see how you can save it to a note. And once you do that, it pops up over on this side. So if you're like, oh, I really like that information, you can put it over here so that when you do add additional sources, because it will change, you'll still have that information available. Down here in the chat, once you've read through the summary, you can ask it questions and prompt it. There's also questions that have already been asked based on that information. And if you just click on one of those, like if I click on this one, it says, what are the most significant differences between major dinosaur groups regarding size, diet, and locomotion? If I click on that, it is going to start to generate a response. So as you can see, it generated a bunch of information very quickly. It even broke it down into different types of dinosaurs or dinosaur groups and their characteristics, their dietary needs, how they get around, all that kind of stuff. So then again, if I wanted to, I could save this to a special note because it answered a specific question for me. And again, if I save it to a note, that is going to populate over here on the studio side of the notebook. Okay. You can also type other questions. I'm just going to type, what is the biggest dinosaur? I have no idea if it will give me that information based on the content that I have available, but we'll just see what it says. So it does give a little bit of a general answer here. The sources identify several dinosaur species that were among the largest, but they specifically highlight sauropods and titanosaurs. And then it goes on. It actually does list the largest dinosaur. So you can get a lot of information just by asking it questions and using the prompts that are already down here. If I wanted to refresh it because I want to go back to what originally was there with my sources, I just hit that refresh button and then it'll take me back. Based on the information here, I could have it create a video overview or an audio overview, which is like a podcast. Those take a little bit. I'm going to show you a couple of examples that I already created, but if you wanted to create a podcast or a video based on just this information, it would certainly do that. Also a mind map, I'm going to show you that here in just a little bit as well. Up here at the top of the chat, this little configure notebook button, you can choose to get more customized responses. So right now it's set at the default, and that's what yours will likely be as well. If you wanted it to be more as a learning guide, it says best for educational content, helping you to grasp new concepts and skills efficiently. It's going to be more of a guide for you to help you understand the content. If you wanted to customize it more, so for example, they gave here, respond at a PhD student level. You could make it more challenging. If you want it to be longer or shorter, you could do that. So I'm going to do these two options, the learning guide and longer, see what it does. And then I'm going to choose, I'm just going to select this question. Then it says, assuming you like to break this down into manageable steps, we can first explore the key types of fossil evidence that drive paleontological understanding and then look at the advanced technology used today. How does that sound? That sounds great. So it will sometimes prompt you if it's needing additional information about what you truly want. So you can see it's still prompting me because I really didn't give it much to go from, but you can see how quickly you can get information in whatever structure that is preferable for you. So I'm just going to set that back to default, hit refresh, and then it goes back. So very easy. This part over here, the studio side, is probably my favorite part of it because this is where it takes all of your sources from over here and it creates these different resources for you that can help with studying or making sense of the information. And I feel like this would be really handy if we're able to eventually get it to where you can push it out to students. You could use this in a lot of different ways. So some of these I created in advance because they take a little bit longer, like the podcast and the videos specifically, those do take more time. So I'm just going to bring up this video so you can see what it came up with.
All right, let's dive into one of the greatest detective stories ever told. We're talking about dinosaurs. But this isn't just about how big T-Rex was. We're going to get into the real heart of the mystery. How do we
So I'm obviously not going to play the whole thing, but this was a 7-minute video that it created using just those 5 sources over here. As you scroll through,
dinosaurs that went extinct from that area? Another
so you can see how it pulls that information to make it more understandable. Up here, you have this share option, and you'll have that with all of the tools to where you could share it with another person, which is pretty handy. You can also download it if you needed to save it into another location. So coming back to the studio, here is the podcast. And I just recently learned that there's actually an interactive mode with the podcast. Unfortunately, I could not get it to work. I don't know if it was just something that was glitching out or what, but basically what you can do is play the podcast, and as they're talking, you can then go into this interactive mode and ask questions as it's playing to get that clarification, which is really awesome. I'm going to play just a little bit of this also.
Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so if you're picturing a dinosaur as some kind of slow, scaly green monster, yeah, get ready for a pretty fundamental rewrite.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're doing a deep dive today into the real complex world of the Mesozoic era, and we're armed with all the latest stuff in paleontology.
Within probably 5 to 10 minutes, it had created a 15, almost 16-minute podcast. And as you heard, it actually sounds legit. It sounds like real people having good conversation back and forth, easy to understand. If I could have gotten this interactive mode to work, you could have seen where you could ask the questions and then they would respond back and forth to that. Like the one I listened to earlier on a YouTube video, I asked a question and the podcast hosts were like, that is a really great question. And they went into detail. And so it was just really neat to see it at work. I am going to make a couple of these so you can see how they work in real time. I'm going to go ahead and hit this mind map. And it will generate it. You'll see it's working and it says based on 5 sources. And technically, if I only wanted to have it create a mind map based on these first 2 sources over here, I could just uncheck these and it would make it based on just these 2. So you have the option to be a little more specific. So over here, when I open this up, it looks like this. And then if I want to get more information about each of these, it will just continue to expand and give that information. Again, you have the option of downloading it. So that's pretty handy. There are flashcards. While that's finishing up, the note I was just talking about down here, if you want to add a note, let's just say you were at a conference or maybe you're in a class or whatever, and you want to take some information down from 10/7/25, and then you can come down here, type whatever you need to type, and then you could convert it to a source. And you can actually move the notes over here, and it could be included as some of your information that could then be summarized in this chat area. We'll see if those flashcards are done. They are. So I'm going to open that up. And it created all these flashcards based on the content that was located in those 5 sources. And as you can see, there are 70 cards there. So there's a lot of information available. Just a really cool tool overall. It really isn't any more complex than this. It can obviously do a lot for you, but it's pretty simple to use. If you needed to collapse these panels because you want more space in the chat, you can do that. Are there any questions so far about either the GEMS or Notebook LM? Nikki, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Okay, so there is one other area in Google Classroom where you can already see some Gemini tools showing, but where you're going to start to see different things appearing. So Kayla already showed you how you can go to Google Classroom, click on Gemini, and it's going to bring up all of these AI tools for educators that looks very similar to what we see in Magic School. But then there is a spot in your classwork area of Google Classroom. When you go to create an assignment, there are now 2 options to assign a Notebook LM or to assign a GEM. And the interesting thing about that is that if you have created a notebook or you've created a GEM and you want to push those out to your students, that is how you would do that. Right now, our students do not have access to Google Gemini. So anything that is built into Google Classroom or even just Gemini chat that we've talked about being available as something students can see, they cannot get access to or open those at this time. It's something that we're in the process of talking to tech about, but as of right now, we can't use that. However, I did want you to be aware that is in the menu. So if you're like, hey, I want to try to use this, just know that if you try to push a gem out to your students, they're not going to be able to actually open it from your assignment within Google Classroom. However, I will show you what that looks like because we did push a couple of assignments out. So that Union Civil War soldier gem that I created, I actually pushed into Google Classroom as an assignment. So if a student was opening this, they would click on it and then it would open that gem as a little chat bot that they could then come over here and be able to start having conversation with. We hope to see that coming soon and being able to use that with students. But right now, I think we've learned enough and we're trying enough that we've probably got some things to learn ourselves in Gemini before we start using it with students. So in the meantime, be looking into how to use these gems, how to create them for you, how to utilize all of the powers that are in Notebook LM, because there is a lot. And I did see that some of you said you didn't have access to that. So we will let tech know that tomorrow, and we'll see about getting that opened up for you so that you can also use Notebook LM, because it is so cool. So cool. I think that's all we've got. Does anyone have questions for us about any of this information? All right. We want to thank you guys for coming today. And obviously, we hope that you're going to start using some of these tools. And if there's anything that you start using and you need some assistance with, Kayla and I are here for you. We will be happy to come and learn alongside you. So please let us know.